the Oos, the one Oos, Eddie in the yard. What's going on, bro? How are you?
Going on, man? How we doing today?
Yeah, I was drinking. You ever have one of these, bro? Colombianas?
What is that? Let me see. I can't see it.
Colombiana?
No, I haven't had that before.
Bro, this is amazing drink, buddy. Amazing. Cola flavored soda, natural and artificial flavors. Got it from a food truck last night called La Fogada at Line Ball in Anderson, I think it was.
The
I
Colombian
drink,
food?
yeah. Oh, yeah. My girlfriend's
Nice.
Colombian. But Colombiana, this is like, you ever have Iron Brew? It's another soda. They taste the same. It's almost like a cream soda kind of thing. But Colombiana, I swear by these things. They're
All
amazing.
right, gente.
Hey, come on, bro. This ain't no Mickey Mouse out here, Papa. Before we talk some hockey, because you covered baseball for so long and, covering the Orioles. Ed, you know me, like growing up in New York, so obviously I have a completely different perspective when it comes to like payroll and stuff like that. But I know you were you joined in while I was on my little diatribe there, but I'm just so sick of the woe is me. Baseball can thrive here. There's hundreds and thousands of people that are playing baseball and men's softball. Like the people love baseball here, but for so long it's been like the little children and the little sisters of the poor here, and it's just crazy. And then when you see the news today, like Stu's like, yeah, we're not going to have the money. Like, yeah, okay, Stu, but today was just kind of that. That final line in the sand of like, we're not doing this.
Right.
And you've been covering baseball. What's your thoughts on the whole thing?
So Major League ownership is it's a weird thing because, obviously, I actually covered those first two teams, when everyone loved him, right? Because he wasn't Vince Namoli.
Right.
And even though, in those teams, he inherited some pretty bad teams. He made one big decision by hiring Joe Madden. And I covered a couple of those first two Madden teams. And I remember hearing Joe in the office post game saying they're gonna get this right. They're gonna get this right. They're gonna get this right. And thinking this guy's crazy. Right. And then obviously 2008 comes and, the bar was raised. And obviously the bar has kind of been there since then, but it's still been under circumstances of having, a pretty low payroll and doing the same things that they do, which is like, I think the unfortunate thing about Rays fans that have grown up in this area has been that you really can't have nice things very, very long, right. like what jersey do you pick? Because with the exception of Evan Longoria, what jersey does a kid pick when he's,
right.
12 years old, because he knows that player is going to get traded.
How important is that, Ed? Because like you've been around, and I stress that level of importance because I feel like it's all about what you're doing here, right? What you're putting your money down for. And it's not just the tickets, because when you have one of these bad boys, right? And that like, I don't want to buy, you've heard this, and I'm sure you have, because I know I have. I don't want to buy that jersey because I don't know if the guy's going to be on the team.
No, absolutely.
People even joke about it. Like every time I buy a jersey, the guy gets traded, right? Even just like on a smaller, like, kind of tongue in cheek kind of way. But there's a reality to that situation. And I think it's a microcosm of the lack of it's a perfect example of the lack of interest and the level of apathy that people have for the Rays. Because, all right, you know how many shirts I have for Randy Arozarena? You know how many things that I have down here? Like, I got Randy Arozarena here. I got Snellzilla right here for,
right.
You know what I mean? I have all these different things that I got when I worked at DAE for all these players that aren't even there anymore. So, there is something to that.
No, absolutely. And I think, I agree. It boggles my mind sometimes because, you and I both know how much this area loves baseball. And, like I covered high school sports and, I've gotten to know, like you have, a lot of the guys who've grown up in this area who became major leaguers, who are big names, whether it's, Boggs or Tino or Fred or all those guys, and it's amazing because we have that salt of earth, interest in baseball here.
Right.
And it's amazing, but like you said, like, I think people want to, embrace players, as much as they love teams, they want to embrace players. And, that's why we love Mike Evans so much. That's why we love that Chris Godwin's going to stay. That's why it hurts when Steven Stamkos leaves. That's why it hurts when, when Ryan McDonough left, and why it feels great when he came back, that's why we saw a standing ovation when Yanni Gord got that, video tribute. As much as it's about the teams, it's about the players too. And I do think that, a lot of fans, like a kid, I remember when I was a kid, I had my players, right? And I wanted to wear their numbers, but I was paying my allowance or whatever I worked
Right.
to get that jersey. Like nowadays jerseys cost $200, $300. So I wasn't buying that stuff when I was a little kid, but I think that's where the interest, because the interest does start with the kids, and especially in a market like this one, which is to a very varying degree, people came from different places. There's not that many native Tampa Bay residents. A lot of people came from somewhere else because this is a great place to live, and they came, a lot of them with their parents or as themselves older, like they came with their own allegiances. That's why we still see a lot of Bruins fans in Amalie Arena, why we see Canadians fans, and some of that's the Snowbirds too, but even now, like I'd love to see a day in wherever there's a baseball stadium, wherever it is, St. Pete, Tampa, hopefully it gets done, that you do hear, you don't hear the visiting fans anyway. And I'm from Baltimore, right? So I think it's kind of cool when I see down the right field, down the right field line behind the third base dugout, and it's nothing but orange, right? That's kind of cool, and the O in the anthem and stuff like that. But it would be nice to really have a something that people can really have ingrained and root for, and not have to worry about this whole discussion every 2-3 years. I think that's the thing, is like, I think if anyone's been here for 20 years, they're just frustrated with all this stuff. It's like, when is it going to be over? Like I think I told you in the press box when it happened, I was like, until you see, shovels in the ground and foundations going up, you can't believe anything you believe in terms of a stadium deal here. And I guess the thing too is like, how much do you care? How much do you really care about getting some stuff done here? And I honestly think, from the Rays' perspective, they really haven't cared enough to get this thing done, because over all the opportunities that they've had, whether it was Al Lang and the flaps and everything like that, to the Tampa and Ebor, to this deal here, like, come on, if you really cared, something would have had to have gotten done by now. I feel very passionate about it, because it's like, I love baseball. Baseball, as much as I love covering hockey, baseball is my first love, and I grew up in a market that loves baseball in Baltimore and lives and breathes with their team, whether they're good or bad. I covered an ownership with the Angelos family that wasn't a very easy one to deal with, and people wanted to run them out, and they weren't, like I said, they weren't easy to deal with. And obviously now they have a new ownership that people are really excited about. The big question after that is like, okay, what's the payroll going to look like? What's the payroll going to look like?
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously the big thing, but it's baseball is such an amazing game that, like, I refuse to settle for the whole fact of all the excuses of why it hasn't worked to the extent that it should work here. But it's just frustrating year after year hearing stadium deal talks, and then knowing that, like, until I see those lights go on, I'm not gonna believe it.
Until that first pitch is thrown, man, we ain't buying it. Yeah, and I'm with you. One of these days where, and I think Tampa's always going to be that city, man. It's always going to be very transit. You're always going to have a lot of people, and even though we do see those snowbirds, and even though we do see a lot of visiting fans, like, there's still a lot of Tampa Bay Lightning fans, man. There still is, and you still see Bolts Nation traveling on the road. And that last road trip that we saw, there was a bunch of Lightning fans. I was like, wow, man, you don't see that type of thing. You don't see Rays fans getting together and going on road trips, and if you do, it's like very sparse and very like little pockets here and there. And Bolts Nation, really, it has become it's a thing unto itself.
Yeah, I think the Washington game, they had 300 Bolts for Life fans went up to that. Obviously DC is a nice place to go for a day or two, but they've done, that's one, I think, other than the community aspect that they've done, and obviously winning cups, I think that's one thing that they've done that's really good, really stands out, is that they've established that Bolts Nation fan base. And I think even when season tickets go up, and I know they have, they're still there, and they're very they're a very loyal base. And when you think about this not being a traditional hockey market, that's pretty amazing.
All right, let's talk some puck. Nikita Kucherov didn't skate this morning. It seems like he's dealing with an illness. So I guess we probably, with Cam Atkinson being called up, you think Kuch is in or out tonight?
Yeah, I don't see him playing tonight. I think that, I think at this point, when you see that he didn't play the third period the last game, and also too, I mean, I think this kind of goes back a little bit to the Buffalo game where he sat for those last, what was it, 7:20. I know that Coop said that, part of it was, the puck hitting him and stuff like that, but he did say that he thought that line needed a reset. And I think Cooch probably needs a little bit of reset too. And I think probably, these haven't been his best two games. It's I think the last time he went two games that were without a point was their last 4-game losing streak. That was on the road in January. So in a lot of ways, this team does roll with Cooch. And I think and at this point, I think what you're seeing right now is not a team that's necessarily undisciplined. I mean, we've seen them turn the puck over various times during the season and it hurt them. But I do sense a sense of, I don't want to call it fatigue, but just like they're hitting the grind right now. And whether it's those guys that, I do think that the Four Nations guys, they're feeling it. It's no joke that Coop gave them a day off out of nowhere, last week. I think Cooch is probably a little bit, he's dealing with something physically, and I think he's probably dealing with something a little bit, frustrated, this. I mean, I know that he's a guy who he's not very revealing to us, but what we do know about him is that he plays to a very high standard. He holds himself to a high standard. He holds his teammates to a high standard. So when things aren't going well, you can see his frustration. So I think, knowing that they're playing a Philadelphia team that's lost 5 straight, all of them at home, it's really struggling. But still knowing that they need points too. I would be surprised to see Cooch in the lineup tonight and just kind of see this team kind of find their way a little bit without him tonight, going into, Boston on Saturday. And so this is a tough stretch for this group. And, I'd like to see the kind of urgency that maybe we saw, back when they were 1 point out of the wild card and needed to win both of those games against Ottawa, kind of a back against the wall urgency mentality. I don't think we've seen that the past week or so. And who knows? I mean, you look at the standings right now and they're not necessarily as comfortable as they were, a week ago. So, and that's a long answer to your question, but, I probably don't expect to see Cooch in there tonight.
Happy birthday to Braden Point, first and foremost, too. So maybe he can do some magic if Cooch is not in there. But yeah, you mentioned the game that, he got quote unquote benched and then played the third period there. And, I put a video out there and I'm pretty sure you saw it.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things where you kind of have to answer that. You have to ask that question. It's not always an easy one. You don't know, because you see it in some sports where you ask a question like that, you get your head bit off. But Coop, I thought, was very diplomatic with it. He was always defending his players, but it did, because remember we were talking up in the press box of I shouted out to you and Eric, he looked like he got hit with the puck, and then Coop kind of acknowledged that, but he said that they needed a reset. So I think it was a little bit of both. I think it was just oh, all right, you're hurt, so just relax. Right. It's the same thing when your kid starts crying and you're just all right, you don't want to come over here, just sit there and cry it out for the next 5 minutes. And then when you're ready to play, come back. Did it seem like that to you? Because it seemed like it was a little bit of both.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, you saw Cooch's body language too.
Yeah.
There's only one other time when I've seen him with that, where his arms crossed and gloves on the railing, and that was when the big three got benched, I think 2 years ago in Buffalo.
Yeah.
In the third period. And one thing about Coop is that, there's times when in a post-game setting where he can be, I don't want to say difficult, but that first or second question, what kind of mood he's in and how outgoing he's going to be with his answers. Now, having said that, I've had questions where he'll bite my head off after it, but then he'll give me a great answer. But when it comes to stuff like this, I think he's very, he wants to hold players accountable, but he also wants to, he wants to hold himself accountable too. I mean, I remember that game in Buffalo, and I remember that was a national game. And so, there wasn't necessarily that many people, because for national games, those guys don't come down to, to talk to post game. So, so there wasn't that many people there. It was Buffalo. But obviously you knew those 3 players didn't play for the entire third period, and I asked him about it, and he gave one of his best answers that I can remember. It was about, that no one gets special treatment if you're not playing the right way, if you're not giving the effort, you're not going to play. And for him to do that to those 3-star players is pretty amazing. And then say it, and tell us the message that he was trying to get on that too. And I think, with Kucherov, I think it's a little, he also knows how to handle certain players too.
Right.
And I think you probably handle Kucherov maybe a little bit different than you handle Stamkos or you handle Point. You know what I mean? When Braden Point missed,
and he slept late,
and he had to be benched, he had a much, it was a different explanation on that too, So
is that his greatest talent, you think?
I think he knows his players so well. I think
Right.
he knows. I actually think he knows us really well too. I mean, I think he knows, kind of the way that we're going to react. I know the way we react to certain things too. But
let's be honest. If it wasn't for me, there lightening the mood every press conference, he might just be a dick all the time. I mean, we just don't know. I'm not trying to gas my own head up, but I really think sometimes I throw him off. Like he's thinking one thing, and then all of a sudden, like he'll look at my shoes, and then he's like, "Where's the water? And where's the microphone? There's no step here. There's no like." Sometimes I think he may like try to have like this thing structured, and all of a sudden
let's tell everyone the whole story here. You are very strategic in post game about where you sit.
Oh,
you sit.
But I've been sitting
right there in the first spot in the corner where,
right.
And you cross your feet. And you're right there, so he can't not see those things. So, right. But he definitely, you have to throw him off. I'll give you that.
Good. I do that for you guys. I do that. It's so funny. You're not getting the first question. You're getting the fourth question. You're getting the third question. But yeah, and then he gets back into lawyer mode. Like, all right, let's go. Which is great. But yeah, I think it's one of his greatest strengths is that he knows his players. He knows us. He's a people person, right? And I think his X's and O's have gotten better, obviously, over the years, being involved with the game more. But yeah, I think his ability to relate to people and him knowing when to push, knowing when to pull, and dealing with guys that, it's not easy dealing with a guy like Kucherov. I don't know if many coaches, like, you got to think about it. If Kucher's in a different market, I think about that sometimes. If Kucher's in another market, like, could something go sideways in the media member? Could he be like a coach killer and get people fired? Like, right? Like, he's a difficult guy. Like, it's just the way it is. Like, we've had this conversation before. Like, it's nothing new. He's just, he's just a different cat, man. He doesn't like talking to people. And, he's in here where we're like, we kind of know the boundaries as the media. Coop knows how to deal with them. So it's just like, he's got a really good situation. I don't know if I'd ever get to a point where Coach would be like, I'm out of here. I want to go somewhere else. Like, I think he knows if he went somewhere else, it wouldn't be so cozy as it is here.
Nikita Kucherov is very smart.
Yes, he is.
He is a very intelligent player. And again, I think that's also another thing. I think he holds, his teammates to a certain level with that as well. That like he knows that other guys don't see things the way he does in terms of like the ice and the way you practice and the stories about the 500 pucks off the boards and off the rimming and stuff like that. So, but I think he knows it. I think he knows that he's got a good situation here. I mean, obviously his main goal here is to win a cup. I think that, I do think that he was probably a little, stung by the fact that he didn't win the Hart Trophy last year.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he, that's kind of his a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I think he's always kind of probably has the chip on his shoulder about little things, but he knows that, like for me, I only go to him when I think that I'm going to get something from him. Right. Mm-hmm. Because if he's in a position where he's not going to be forthcoming, then it does me no good. It does him no good, So, I mean, I've talked to him a couple times recently, and he's actually pretty forthcoming about a couple, just like a bit pretty engaged, like in terms of, just talking about the game and talking about, the way he sees it and stuff like that. And he loves talking about other people, about other teams.
Yeah.
He doesn't like talking about himself at all. But I mean, like I talked to him about Jake Gensel. He loves playing with Jake Gensel. He loves the way that his intelligence level, his hockey, quote unquote hockey IQ, the way he skates, the way he kind of finds places. He's not going to blow you away with the he's not going to blow you away with the way he skates or he's not this big guy or anything like that. Doesn't have a huge shot, but I think Kuchar really likes, playing with him. And like I said, I think I've said this all along, is that, that line is really going to be the one that kind of is going to have to lead them to, through the playoffs in a lot of ways. And, the lockdown, the shutdown line is going to have to do its job too. But yeah, so, but yeah, I mean, he knows. Coach is smart. He knows what
he knows to do.
Yeah,
he's no dummy. Before I let you go, buddy, this time flew by today. I got to get more Rays talk in because people are killing me. What's up on TampaBay.com? I was showing you guys some love before, but I know you got some great stories up there, Tampa Bay Times.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're following this whole thing with the Kuchar thing, and what the deal is with him, his health, whether it's whether there's something else going on. But yeah, I mean, following the game tonight in Philly, I think that's this is a game they've got to win. You
got to win this one.
No joke.
They got to right the ship here.
Right, they got to right the ship here. It's kind of right there for them. Philly's obviously struggling. You see Cam Atkins in the lineup probably. That'll be interesting because coming back to Philly after they basically gave him the heave-ho.
Going back.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Philly.
But yeah, just kind of looking at what's really kind of going on right with the Lightning. I think that, there's a lot of things, and again, I honestly think that they're kind of a tired team right now. They've just kind of get back to that sense of urgency to kind of will them through the next 3 weeks. It's not easy. Obviously a lot of games on the road. Going out west a little bit with games in in Utah and Vegas. That back to back doesn't that's not easy.
Dog days of spring, right?
Right. That first week of April, you've got a bunch of division opponents there too, including the Senators. So, like I said, I'd like to see the next 3 weeks kind of play that sense of urgency, that whether you have Nikita Kucherov at 100% or not. I think some of these guys, especially some of the Four Nations guys, are kind of battling it physically right now. So, and probably mentally too. I mean, you go from this to that, and everything. I think that's tough, especially when you're in the grind of the season. And no joke, it's been pretty much game off for the past. It's going to be that way all month and into April. So just kind of going into some of that stuff. We were looking ahead and as to what's going on with this team. And like you said, tonight they need a win though.
I've been telling you guys a lot. Support local, especially our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. Now is like the perfect time too with USF, the women's basketball team. I know Joey Knight did a great write-up on them. Men's basketball going at it right now. Everything with the Rays, with Mark Topkin, Colleen Wright, the entire crew over there. John Romano, his 2 cents. We know the NFL free agency with Rick Stroud. And then, of course, hockey here with our guy, Ed Encina. Right now is the perfect time. Get your subscription to Tampa Bay Times. It's also a great idea for a gift, right? You want to stay in tune. We got to support our local. This is important. We talk about it when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, and people kind of like looking down their nose at our market and people here in the Bay Area. A way that we can combat that is by continuing to support local, and nobody better to support than our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. So subscribe today, and then go read all of Ed's stuff and follow him on Twitter/X. At Eddie in the yard, not Eddie on the ice. One of these days we'll get him out there, skate backwards, and do our thing. I appreciate you, Big Goose. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.
Hey, I appreciate you, Jay. Thanks a lot, man.
You're the man, the one. Ed.